Hi, my name is Parinita Shetty, and in this video, I'm going to talk about my PhD project where my co-participants and I were simultaneously othered in different contexts. For my PhD project, I created a fan podcast called Marginally Fannish. My guests and I love different media and we engage in fandom communities in different ways. In our episodes, we explored how diverse groups of people are erased or misrepresented in media. We use the framework of our favorite fictional worlds, characters, and events to discuss our real world experiences and perspectives. I was really lucky that a relatively diverse group of fans volunteered to participate. Together, we inhabited a wide range of identities, different nationalities, races, genders, sexualities, and abilities. Since we were marginalized and privileged in different contexts, it wasn't really a case of me encountering the other because I was myself an other. Instead, different others came together in the podcast episodes, and our conversations helped make up for my own gaps in knowledge about identities beyond my own. Even though I believed I was open minded and inclusive, the project highlighted how ignorant I was about several aspects. Being passionate about issues of oppression and privilege didn't absolve me from my biases. As a cisgender, heterosexual, able bodied woman without any identified mental illnesses, my dominant culture blind spots especially came to the fore while chatting with queer and disabled co participants. Their experiences helped me understand perspectives which I hadn't encountered before. Robert found it difficult to explain what it's like to live with a disability because he's never experienced anything else. He's always had dyspraxia and he's always been on the autistic spectrum. He didn't know how his experiences differed from other people's lives. When I had initially suggested that we should all explain our own experiences with the episode themes, I hadn't realized how presumptuous this suggestion was. While such contextualization can raise awareness and educate, it unfairly places the onus on the marginalized person. Robert also discussed how, in mainstream science fiction and fantasy media, magic or advanced technology is often used to fix and thereby erase disabilities. It's rarely used to imagine creative ways for disabled bodies and minds to navigate these worlds. Robert was deeply uncomfortable with the idea that his disabled mind and body don't belong even in most people's imaginary worlds. As a child in Austria, Milena couldn't talk about their queer identity with their family because their parents had no understanding of queerness. Milena's parents had never encountered a person from the LGBTQIA+ community in media, let alone in real life. As an adult, Milena lamented the stereotype laden representation of bisexual people in media, which has prejudiced their parents against their bisexual identity. I hadn't realized how insidious it was that people from marginalized groups have to constantly explain their experiences and identities in a media landscape which caters to the dominant culture. It becomes the responsibility of LGBTQIA+ people since being cisgender and heterosexual is the presumed default. Diana didn't have any queer examples in their everyday life or media. They grew up Catholic in a conservative area in the US. Online fandom became an important avenue to find people whose identities and experiences reflected their own. Now, Diana wants to destabilize the heterosexual default in mainstream media and society. At one point in our conversation, I wish that gay characters were a more normalized part of media rather than always becoming a political issue. Diana pushed back against this desire. For them, politicizing their marginalized identity is a way to develop and exert their agency in a world which isn't designed for them. Diana wanted more kinds of queer representation so that no one experience is considered to be normal. While I'm an atheist, some of my guests were religious. Growing up in Mumbai, I chafed at the religious expectations of my Hindu family and community. So I've never given a second thought to religious representations in media. However, for Zeev, an Orthodox Jewish fan, this is a tremendously important issue. Jewishness, as well as religious representations overall, are largely absent in mainstream science fiction and fantasy media. Zeev acknowledged that even comparing religion with other marginalized identities is wrong in different contexts. For example, in Israel, which is where he lives, Judaism isn't marginalized. However, he believed that there was a lack of nuance in mainstream media portrayals of religious people who are often only represented in fundamentalist or stereotypical ways. This is something I hadn't thought about. I really enjoyed Zeev's thoughtful contributions and his willingness to find commonalities amongst our differences. Zeev understood that many versions of religion clash with humanistic and pluralistic values. He wished that more people grappled with these challenging issues so that people from different worldviews could find a way to live together. When Anna suggested talking about Wicca and paganism, although I knew very little about her faith traditions, I was really excited to learn. During our episode, I realized that many people in the real world don't consider Wicca as a serious religion. Even when I first envisioned discussing religion, I was largely thinking of the more mainstream Indian religions like Hinduism, Islam, and Christianity. Anna criticized the TV show The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, where witches were shown to be more aligned with Satanists and steeped in misogyny. Anna complained that such inaccurate representations of Wicca have little to do with its multiple real world versions. She was especially frustrated by how often media places Wicca in opposition to Christianity, thereby perpetuating false notions of what Wicca is about. Media ends up promoting inaccurate myths and stereotypes, which in turn influences people's opinions. To make up for the overall lack of complex and nuanced religious characters, some fans read their religions into science fiction and fantasy media. Aisha, a Muslim fan from the UAE, loved the Tumblr post Imagine a Muslim Witch, which explores the experiences of a Muslim witch at Hogwarts. The post reimagines how she navigates Eurocentric structures, languages, foods, cultures, and religions in the magical world from the Harry Potter books. Despite the lack of Muslim characters in the Potterverse, Aisha found it easy to imagine herself in Hogwarts because the uniforms, loose black robes, reflected clothes that she was familiar with in Dubai. Aisha has seen many fans cosplaying as Harry Potter characters since it's relatively easy to replicate outfits which resemble clothes that Arabic and Muslim women wear in many parts of the world. Non religious fans like me can learn about different religious practices through such interpretations. Beginning in December 2019, J.K. Rowling's tweets caused a furor among a portion of the Harry Potter fandom for allegedly being transphobic. What seemed to be evident to many people was that Rowling didn't consider trans women worthy of the same rights and respect as accorded to cis women. Her statements particularly hurt trans fans of the books, many of whom saw their identities reflected in Harry's journey into the magical world. I find it easy to refuse to engage with problematic creators whose works I have no emotional investment in. However, Harry Potter is different. The books provided me with hope and comfort during a troubled childhood and during a really difficult 2020. I found recent discussions about Rowling and Harry Potter immensely depressing. But at the same time, I found it easy to divorce Rowling from her work. But the books themselves, it's not even that I'm unwilling to let go of them. I'm unable. They form too core a part of my identity. For me, Harry Potter has always gone side by side with its fandom. I've learned so much from Fannish conversations and critiques, which have made my politics and ideas about equality, oppression, and privilege more inclusive. Harry Potter played a formative role in Rita's life too. However, she couldn't separate the art from the artist. She thought that while we may be able to examine Rowling's messages more critically as adults, this may not be the same for much younger people who idolize the creators of their beloved worlds. Artists now have massive audiences on social media, which means that young people can easily access their statements online. Encountering problematic ideas uncritically may shape their own beliefs. Consequently, Rita found it both emotionally and morally impossible to continue engaging with Harry. Neither Rita nor I changed our stance at the end of our conversation. However, we did emerge with a greater understanding of and respect for each other's conflicting opinions. The thing that 2020 has taught us is never have heroes, as Rita says. Never have heroes, they will all disappoint you. Throughout all the episodes, I was frequently self conscious about my ignorance of certain identities. I worried about accidentally offending a guest in my attempts to learn, and I had to become comfortable with not always knowing the correct thing to say or do. According to Jake Burdick and Jennifer A. Sandlin's framework, a methodology of discomfort, this imperfection is a crucial part of our knowledge making process. If I'm 100% comfortable with all my beliefs, it's likely that I'll overlook the many lives and experiences I'm wholly ignorant of. Being comfortable with being uncomfortable is a great way to learn what I don't know. My uncertainty and mistakes help me question my assumptions, reflect on my limitations, and expose me to unexpected ideas, thereby expanding my imagination. I'm still very ignorant about many identities. Although I'm learning to fill in those gaps, the most valuable thing I've found is the discovery of how little I actually do know, how limited my own very specifically situated experiences are. This doubt and not knowing allows me to seek out more information and stories. This not knowing is actually quite liberating. Thank you. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to get in touch. You'll find me hanging out in different places online.